The motel room was small, quiet, and carried the tired feeling of a place that had welcomed countless travelers passing through. A single queen-sized bed stood against the wall beneath a faded landscape painting. A warm bedside lamp cast a soft golden glow across the room, leaving the corners wrapped in gentle shadows. Rain tapped steadily against the window, and the faint hum of the air conditioner was the only sound breaking the silence. Near the entrance, a worn wooden chair sat beside a narrow table holding a lamp, a room key, and 2 unopened bottles of water. The carpet showed years of use, and the curtains were drawn tightly against the dark night outside. A 26-year-old woman stepped inside cautiously, her backpack hanging from one shoulder while a small travel bag rested in her hand. She paused just beyond the doorway, carefully scanning every corner of the room. Her eyes moved from the window to the bathroom door, then settled on the bed in the center of the room. The moment she realized there was only one bed, her shoulders stiffened. She tightened her grip on the strap of her backpack, standing perfectly still as uncertainty crossed her face. She looked exhausted from the long journey, yet her expression revealed more than physical fatigue. It reflected hesitation, caution, and the instinctive need to feel secure in an unfamiliar place. A 29-year-old man entered a few steps behind her, carrying a small duffel bag. He noticed her sudden silence and immediately understood what had caught her attention. Instead of moving closer, he stopped near the door, leaving plenty of space between them. His calm posture and relaxed expression showed patience rather than urgency. He quietly placed his bag on the floor beside the wall without making unnecessary conversation. The room remained peaceful, filled only with the gentle rhythm of rain outside. The woman slowly looked around again, as if hoping she had overlooked another bed hidden somewhere in the room. There wasn't one. The single bed occupied most of the available space, making the room feel even smaller. She drew a slow breath, trying to collect her thoughts while remaining alert. Her eyes briefly met the man's before looking away again. The atmosphere carried a delicate tension born not from danger, but from unfamiliarity and uncertainty. The warm light softened every detail of the room, creating long shadows across the carpet. The bedside lamp illuminated the neatly folded white sheets, while reflections of rain shimmered faintly on the window glass. The bathroom door remained slightly open, revealing clean white tiles inside. Everything appeared ordinary, yet the simplicity of the room emphasized the awkward reality of the situation. The man quietly leaned against the wall near the entrance, keeping his hands visible and his movements slow. His respectful distance allowed the woman time to process the situation without feeling pressured. His expression remained calm, thoughtful, and reassuring. He understood that trust could never be demanded, it could only be earned through actions. The woman loosened her grip on her backpack slightly, though she continued holding it close. Her breathing gradually steadied as the silence stretched comfortably between them. Neither person rushed to speak. The quiet itself seemed to acknowledge the importance of the moment. Outside, the rain continued falling steadily, wrapping the little motel in a cocoon of peaceful isolation. The modest room, illuminated by warm amber lighting against the cool darkness beyond the window, became the setting for an unspoken test of character. Every detail, the single bed, the worn carpet, the gentle rain, the respectful distance, the calm expressions, and the stillness filling the room, created a deeply cinematic atmosphere focused entirely on dignity, patience, and mutual respect. Photorealistic, ultra-detailed, emotional cinematic storytelling, natural body language, realistic facial expressions, soft warm lighting, shallow depth of field, highly detailed textures, 4K quality. The silence lingered inside the modest motel room as the woman remained near the door, her backpack still resting against her shoulder. The warm glow from the bedside lamp softened the atmosphere, but it could not immediately erase the uncertainty she felt after noticing there was only one bed. Rain continued to fall outside, its gentle rhythm tapping against the window and blending with the quiet hum of the air conditioner. The room felt still, almost suspended in time, as neither traveler rushed to fill the silence with unnecessary words. The 26-year-old woman looked once more toward the single bed neatly made with crisp white sheets and carefully arranged pillows. Her expression reflected caution rather than fear, the natural hesitation of someone suddenly placed in an uncomfortable situation. She shifted her weight slightly, holding her travel bag close to her side while keeping a respectful distance from the man. Her eyes briefly wandered toward the window, then to the small wooden table beside the bed where 2 unopened bottles of water rested beneath the warm light of the lamp. The 29-year-old man immediately understood the concern written across her face. Without moving closer, he quietly set his duffel bag beside the wall and remained where he was, leaving several feet of space between them. His posture stayed relaxed, his hands visible, and his expression calm. He avoided sudden movements, speaking only after allowing a moment of silence to pass naturally. The woman finally broke the silence, her voice soft and uncertain. "I don't feel safe, there's only one bed." Her words hung gently in the room without accusation or anger. They carried honesty, vulnerability, and the understandable discomfort of sharing an unfamiliar space with someone she barely knew. She lowered her eyes for a moment, unsure how her concern would be received. The man listened without interruption. He neither defended himself nor questioned her feelings. Instead, he nodded once with quiet understanding, accepting that her comfort mattered more than his own convenience. His calm expression never changed. Without saying another word, he slowly walked toward the small closet near the entrance. Every movement remained deliberate and unhurried. He opened the closet door and found an extra blanket folded neatly on the upper shelf along with a spare pillow. Taking both items, he closed the door gently to avoid making unnecessary noise. He crossed only part of the room before placing the blanket and pillow carefully on the carpet several feet away from the bed. The space he chose was near the wall beneath the window, leaving the bed entirely for her. He knelt briefly to spread the blanket flat across the floor, smoothing out its folds with quiet patience. The pillow was placed neatly at one end, creating a simple sleeping space without drawing attention to himself. When he stood again, he stepped back immediately, restoring the respectful distance between them. "I'm here," he said softly. His words were calm, reassuring, and free from expectation. They carried no attempt to persuade or impress. They simply acknowledged that she deserved to feel safe. The woman looked from the bed to the blanket on the floor. Surprise flickered across her face, replacing some of the tension that had been visible only moments earlier. She had expected an argument, perhaps even discomfort or frustration. Instead, she found quiet consideration. The room itself seemed warmer now. The amber light from the bedside lamp reflected softly across the white sheets and the neatly arranged blanket on the carpet. Outside, the steady rain continued falling beneath the dark night sky while faint reflections shimmered across the motel window. The peaceful rhythm of the storm created a comforting backdrop to the quiet exchange. Neither traveler felt the need for long explanations. Respect had been communicated through simple actions rather than elaborate speeches. The atmosphere gradually shifted from awkward uncertainty to quiet reassurance. The woman slowly placed her backpack on the chair beside the table. Her shoulders relaxed slightly as she realized she had been given both physical space and the freedom to choose without pressure. She remained cautious, but the room no longer felt as intimidating as it had only minutes earlier. The man sat briefly on the edge of the blanket he had arranged on the floor, keeping his attention on organizing his belongings rather than looking toward her. His actions remained calm, ordinary, and respectful, allowing the silence to settle naturally once more. The modest motel room, with its single bed, worn carpet, warm bedside lamp, gentle rainfall beyond the window, and 2 weary travelers separated by mutual respect, became a quiet scene of trust beginning to grow through kindness rather than words. Every detail emphasized dignity, patience, and compassion, creating an emotional cinematic atmosphere with photorealistic lighting, natural body language, highly detailed textures, realistic facial expressions, shallow depth of field, ultra-detailed realism, and 4K cinematic quality. the motel room had grown quieter as the night settled into a peaceful rhythm. The rain outside had softened to a gentle drizzle, leaving tiny droplets clinging to the window. Pale moonlight slipped through a narrow gap in the curtains, blending with the warm glow of the bedside lamp to create a calm, comforting atmosphere. The small room no longer felt tense. Instead, it carried the quiet stillness that comes after understanding has replaced uncertainty. The 26-year-old woman sat on the edge of the bed for a few moments, taking in everything around her. The neatly made blanket spread across the carpet near the window caught her attention once again. It wasn't thrown carelessly onto the floor. It had been arranged thoughtfully, with a pillow placed neatly at one end and enough space to sleep comfortably despite the limited room. The simple gesture spoke louder than any promise could have. She looked toward the 29-year-old man. He had already settled onto the blanket without hesitation. His duffel bag rested beside him against the wall, and his shoes had been placed neatly underneath the chair to keep the narrow walkway clear. He avoided looking directly at her, giving her complete privacy and allowing her to feel comfortable in the room. His calm body language reflected quiet confidence, not pride. He expected nothing in return for his decision. The woman slowly placed her backpack on the wooden chair beside the table. For the first time since entering the motel room, she loosened the tension in her shoulders. She carefully removed her jacket, folded it neatly, and placed it beside her bag. Her movements became slower and more relaxed, no longer driven by uncertainty. She looked around the room once more, noticing the ordinary details she had overlooked earlier. The warm bedside lamp illuminated the clean white sheets, the faded painting above the bed, and the two unopened bottles of water waiting on the table. Everything appeared simple, quiet, and peaceful. Outside, the drizzle continued beneath a dark sky filled with drifting clouds. Occasionally, the moon emerged, sending soft silver light across the glass window before disappearing again. The distant sound of passing cars faded quickly into the night, leaving only the quiet rhythm of rain and the gentle hum of the air conditioner inside the room. The man adjusted the edge of the blanket beneath him before lying down comfortably on the floor. He pulled the blanket over himself and rested his head on the pillow. His expression remained relaxed, showing no sign of disappointment or resentment. Sleeping on the floor had simply become the obvious choice once he understood how she felt. His actions had never been about proving anything. They had simply reflected respect. The woman watched quietly for a moment. Earlier that evening, the single bed had represented discomfort and uncertainty. Now it represented something entirely different. It reminded her that trust is often built through small decisions rather than dramatic gestures. No long conversations had been necessary. No promises had been demanded. Respect had been demonstrated through quiet actions that allowed another person to feel secure. She turned off the bedside lamp, leaving only the gentle moonlight to illuminate the room. Soft blue light stretched across the carpet, touching the blanket where the man rested peacefully. The room became even quieter, wrapped in a calm darkness that felt safe instead of unfamiliar. She carefully lay down on the bed, pulling the blanket over herself. For a brief moment, she listened to the sound of the rain outside. Her breathing gradually slowed, and the tension that had accompanied her throughout the evening finally disappeared. She no longer felt the need to remain alert. The room felt peaceful. Across the room, the man remained asleep on the floor, undisturbed by the cool night air drifting faintly through the window. His peaceful expression reflected genuine contentment, knowing that the room had become a place where both travelers could rest comfortably without fear or discomfort. The hours passed quietly. The rain eventually stopped, leaving only occasional drops falling from the roof outside. Moonlight continued filtering gently through the curtains, casting soft reflections across the carpet and the wooden furniture. The motel room remained still, interrupted only by the slow rhythm of two exhausted travelers finally getting the rest they needed after a long journey. As dawn slowly approached, the first pale light of morning began replacing the darkness outside. The room looked almost unchanged, yet everything felt different. What had begun as an uncomfortable situation had quietly become an example of kindness, patience, and mutual respect. Without dramatic speeches or grand sacrifices, trust had begun to grow through simple choices that honored another person's comfort and dignity. The modest motel room, illuminated by fading moonlight and the first gentle hints of sunrise, captured a deeply emotional cinematic moment. A young woman rested peacefully on the bed, feeling completely safe, while a young man slept comfortably on the blanket arranged neatly on the floor nearby. Every detail, the quiet room, the rain-washed window, the warm atmosphere, the respectful distance, the natural body language, the realistic facial expressions, the soft lighting, and the peaceful silence, created a photorealistic, ultra-detailed, emotionally powerful scene filled with compassion, dignity, trust, cinematic realism, shallow depth of field, highly detailed textures, and stunning 4K quality.